Hello, welcome. We will continue our discussion on test plan template. Now we will continue with the performance test execution section. In this section, we will specify our performance test run details. That means how many cycles of run we are doing, and under each cycle how many runs we are doing. These details will be specified, and also there will be a smoke test that is being performed before performing the actual performance test, and this is commonly done to identify if any major issues in the application, right? Smoke test is designed to ensure that performance test scripts are working in the performance test environment. So the point here is, if test is not working for just one user, there is no point in performing the test for 100 users or 1000 users, right? That is the point of doing a smoke test. So basically smoke test is to identify major issues. If there is any major issue is found, and we will not continue with further testing until that issue is fixed, because if it is not working for one or two users, there is no point in continuing with our testing with the higher load, right? So now performance test details we can specify like this. For example, here load test we are doing, and here test case id is a non-functional requirement 01. Here we are doing a cycle 1 run 1, cycle 2 run 2, sorry, cycle 1 run 2, and cycle 2 run 1, and cycle 2 run 2, right? This is a load test. Purpose of the load test is to peak hour transaction processing will be under examination to determine if the system can maintain the response times under highest anticipated load. This test is designed to collect the performance matrices on transaction throughput, response time, resource utilization in comparison to the performance requirement, right? These details we will collect during our load testing, and we perform load testing in two different cycles, cycle 1 and cycle 2. In each cycle we perform a 2 runs. These are all for example purpose. You might be conducting 3 cycles of run as well, and you might be performing 3 runs in each cycle as well, right? This is for understanding purpose. You need to optimize your plan according to your application and the requirement, right? This is for understanding purpose. So here number of tests we are doing 4, 2 tests per cycle. Similarly, duration you can specify. What is the ramp up time, what is steady state, what is ramp down time, and what are the scripts we are running to do this testing. Script 1 to script 8. These scripts are, what are these scripts? These scripts we have prepared earlier. If you remember, see, these are the scripts: script 6, script 7, script 8, like that. We have prepared 8 different scripts for different business requirements, right? So these are the scripts we are running to perform this load test. Scenario name, you can perform load test scenario, or you can specify any scenario name here. And what are the non-functional requirements which are covered? We are covering these non-functional requirements under this test. What is the user load? 100 users we have specified here. So these things you need to optimize based on your requirement and the application under test. So entry criteria, these are the common entry criteria. The code should be stable and functionally verified. Test environment should be stable and ready to use. Test data should be available. All NFR means non-functional requirements should be agreed with the project. Test script should be ready to use, right? Exit criteria means all non-functional requirements must be met. The error rate of the transaction must not be more than 1% of the transaction count, and CPU utilization must not be more than 70%, right? These are some of the sample exit criteria. You might be having different exit criteria for your application. For example, you do not want CPU utilization to be, you are okay if it is up to 80%. That kind of scenario might be there, and you need to get it checked with the business users or a product owner, right? So what is the what exactly they are expecting. So similarly, stress test. So these are the template. This is a format that you can use, and you can adjust this format according to your need, right? This is a sample format like load test. What are these details? Similarly, we have specified the details for the stress test also. Similarly, for soak test or endurance test, we have specified the details here, right? And here in the section 5.3, we have mentioned performance test monitoring matrix. Here we specify the matrices that we are going to collect during the performance testing. Also, what is the service level agreement? For example, response time, right? Time taken to respond to user request. It should be less than 3 seconds. Transaction throughput. It should be greater than 100 transactions per second. Concurrency or load capacity. It should be able to handle more than 100 users, right? Without degrading the performance. Error rate should be less than 1%. Server CPU utilization must be less than 75%, 80%. Memory utilization should be less than 75%. Network latency should be less than 100 milliseconds, so on. Right? Each application will be having its own set of requirement and service level agreement. Right? That one you need to get it verified with the business users or product owner or a business analyst, right? So similarly, it's other server like database server, application server, web server. What are the parameters that you are going to measure? That one you can specify here. And then comes to performance test environment. As we have discussed in the earlier chapters as well, performance test environment should be as close to the production environment as possible, right? If performance test environment is not exactly similar to production environment, then we need to adjust our load accordingly based on the resources available in the performance test environment, and accordingly we need to analyze our result, right? For example, here the table format you can specify what is the web server details, middleware details, and database server details. We specify server name, environment, what is the hardware version, what is the OS version, how much of memory is available, what is the CPU count, how many cores of CPU available, and total disk space, right? Similarly, you can create another table for production environment details, which will help you to verify what is the difference. Suppose if the resources in the testing environment is half of that of the production environment, then we test with the half of the load only, because we need to get a realistic performance overview, right? So based on the resources available, we need to adjust your user load. If test environment resources are same as production environment resources, then no need to adjust your user load, and you can use your actual value that you have planned, right? Now in this next section 5.5, we are mentioning assumptions, constraint, risks, and dependencies. So some of the assumptions we will make while performing any testing or any activity, right? The code should be stable and pass it through functional testing before deploying to the performance testing environment. The required licenses must be available in the performance test center to run the test, and if you have any software that you are using, those licenses must be available, and fully deployed installed web server, middleware, and database server should be operational for in order to do the performance testing, and test data must be provided for performance testing before the test can begin. Similarly, constraints. What are the constraints we have? We can specify here. Performance test environment has a 50% of the servers that a production has. It means the scaling factor of the performance test to production is 50%. All the production load models are executed in performance test should be 50% of the full production load model to represent 100% of the load test in test environment. It means since the resources are only 50% of the production environment, we will also reduce the load to 50% of the actual load. Since the resources are 50% of the production, we also reduce the load to 50% while doing a testing in a test environment. Similarly, performance test environment does not have a some or older data that a production has, which limits the sum of the data scenarios that can be simulated, right? This is another constraint. The production data has been purged since this date. Searches in the production intermingle with old data, then a performance with older data that a performance test can. This could limit the capacity of producing some of the production issues. Performance test does not have a commercial tool or an performance test team does not have a commercial tool or an approved Wireshark tool that allows measuring a network response time using packet capture, right? These constraints and impacts we have specified here, and in this section we are specifying the risk. So if the functional errors from validation testing occur, and prevent the creation of performance test script for a performance test execution. Execution of performance test project tasks will be delayed until the functional errors are addressed. It means if there is any functional error, we cannot continue with the performance testing. The performance tuning effort is conducted in the middle of performance test execution schedule as a result of configuration or code changes that are made to the environment. Any test execution done prior to the performance testing should be re-executed. It means if they do any changes to the environment or a code, we need to rerun the performance test. These are some of the risks, and we also specify the mitigation strategies and who is responsible for handling those risks, right? Similarly, dependencies. So what are the dependencies for performing these tests? The latest build should be available in the environment before a non-functional test start date. Test data should be ready and provided by the test data team, and who is responsible for providing that and what is the action we will take, those details we will specify here. And milestones, and testing, performance testing goes through various phases. So the year milestones we can specify: preliminary project plan submitted, final project submitted, performance test requirements and production load model is reviewed, environment planning, test script development and test data planning, environment certification and test script validation, data staging and setup, performance test monitoring and configuration, test execution and analysis, right? Each of these step, who is the responsible person, also you can specify here what is the risk and how much percentage is done. These details you can track here. And here test organization details, it means who are all the team members in the test organization, means testing team, and what is the role of each member, like project manager, team lead, project engineer, right? These are the different people who are responsible for doing this performance testing, and each one will have a particular responsibility, right? This can be specified here. And again, I'm telling this is a template, okay? You can adjust this, and you can if you don't want to specify some of the sections here, you can remove as well. So it's all depends on what exactly you are looking for in and what is the process that has been set in the organization, right? Here acronyms means you can specify the full form. NFR means non-functional requirement, PT means performance testing. These are some of the common sections you will find in all the documents, right? Business requirement document, functional requirement documents, right? And appendix glossary. Pacing means the delay between the two iteration. Think time means delay between the two transactions, right? Appendix C, reference documents you can specify here. And now so far we have discussed the different sections, and we have also gone in details what we need to mention in each of the sections of performance testing. Thank you for watching.